Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports, coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say Benvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good buzzing in Canada. We love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful June the 18th, 2019. Grando Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Charlton, it's wet down here, but I had a wonderful day. I got chauffeured around by my daughter. I was able to go get me some wide fit shoes to go along with this wide body that I got, so now my feet will be comfortable.
Yeah, you and Howie Long, some wide fit shoes, wide fit cars, wide fit bank account. It's all good, Big C, in the land of the free and the home of the brave. My goodness, we had a heat wave hit California, Northern California. People think everything is on the ocean when they come to California. But it's about 100 degrees in Northern California, actually 105 in some spots. And of course, over on the coast, if you're near San Francisco, it's right about the 70 to 80 degrees. So it's all great over there in the Bay Area, Big C. But I hear, did you say that, are you guys getting that same heat wave down south, Big C?
Well, we're getting a heat wave of water down here, Charlton. I mean, we have the humidity, so we always have some type of moisture moving around down here. But we've had the rain falling all day. My lawn and flowers are loving every drop of it, Charlton.
Wow.
It's saving me on my water bill, and I think because it's so warm outside later on after the show, I'll just go out and take a shower.
Go out and take a shower in your neighbor's pool, or sometimes God provides all the showers you guys need for the good old boys down south. A lot of things going on in sports. And again, just thinking about all the talk of the Masters that Tiger won, and then Pebble Beach wasn't able to quite get it done at Pebble Beach yesterday. But there's still so much talk about, when you think about Gary Woodland and how a lot of people are saying it's a first time for a lot of things. Woodland's first time winning a major. Toronto Raptors' first time winning an NBA championship. So there's a lot of first times coming around, Big C. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. When you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you, as well as a fleet of Cadillac cars. I want to get your feelings on something, because this is a first. And when we talk about first, I believe you look at Texas Tech, that program down there having a chance to get to the Final Four in basketball, and then we know their baseball program has been solid also. But when you think about Woodland having his first major, that U.S. Open, and Toronto Raptors, their first NBA championship, who else is in line, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, you know, when you think about a first, Charlton, you hang around anything long enough and you'll get a chance to be a first.
Yep, that's
it's
true.
not like Woodland just showed up on the PGA circuit. He's been there over a decade playing golf, Charlton, and always chasing. You know, just so happens he happens to win a major there at Pebble Beach. But, you know, after over a decade on the circuit and only one victory, you know, you don't know if he's going to be competitive enough to win another one.
Yeah.
Since he won this first one, was that enough to satisfy him? I mean, it's everybody's goal on the PGA Tour to win their first tournament. I go back to when Sergio Garcia was being anointed the next great golfer on the circuit, you know, after Tiger had some injuries. And Sergio took him forever to win Augusta.
Yep.
But after winning Augusta, he basically went away. I know Rory McIlroy had been anointed to be the next great golfer on the circuit.
That's right.
I think he only has 4 majors in his career. We talked about Jordan Spieth. He has 3 majors in his career.
Yeah.
I mean, after winning his last Masters, Charlton, he's basically fallen off the charts. I mean, you see him playing, but he's like Tiger. He's not challenging anybody on a tournament-by-tournament basis.
Yeah.
We look at the Toronto Raptors, Charlton. The thing about team sports in professional sports is that you can put together a run in a hurry to put together a team.
Yeah.
And everybody is jubilant in Canada, over half the country, watch them win the title.
Yep.
But when you think about how this team was structured, it wasn't like they came out of the abyss. This is a team that has been competitive for the past 5 years in the NBA.
Yeah.
And one of the top teams in the East for the last 3 years in the NBA. When you think about what Ajuri did, the general manager, president of the Toronto Raptors, in facilitating some trades at the beginning and at the trade mark in the season, Charlton, that's what made the Toronto Raptors get to that point. Also, LeBron James leaving the East was a great boost for them. Also, they no longer had to deal with LeBron James because every year,
no more King.
All they could do is knock on his door. He never opened it up for them.
Yeah.
So, when he moved residency to the West Coast, it made it much easier path
That's
to
funny.
get to the championship.
Yeah.
And so, with Ujiri making the moves that he did via trade,
yes.
LeBron James deciding he didn't want to live in Cleveland cold weather anymore. He wanted some of that heat you got out there in California.
Oh, yeah.
It facilitated the Toronto Raptors a path to the championship.
That's incredible. Ironically, when you look at Ujiri, I believe the officer that tried to rough him up in Oakland at Oracle Arena, he said he's having a hard time remembering things. It's called amnesia. Isn't that amazing? Because we've seen the horrific incident with the family down in Arizona. And I didn't see all the whole story until there was a 1-year-old baby in the car and a 4-year-old girl in the car. And ironically, that was their first time being, facing the barrel of a gun. How would a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old pose any threat to any human being? And to see how egregious that was. So juxtapose that to the officer that tried to grab the Toronto Raptors president, and he's claiming that he's suffering some memory loss because he said he was roughed up. He's the one with the gun and the badge. Big, so your thoughts?
Well, it's easy to claim that, Charlton, when you're in power. Whenever there's an uneasy situation between a minority and a mainstream person, Charlton, people are going to believe the mainstream person. Here's an officer.
Rodney
These
King.
guys are always writing reports and are making statements, Charlton.
Yeah.
But when it comes down to the viewing of a videotape or a body cam, all of a sudden situations change. They'll write an initial report.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, when there's videotape, and you got to realize for the NBA Finals, Charlton, there was dozens and dozens of cameras all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
Thousands of cameras if you're looking at a handheld camera, cell phone.
Yep.
All of a sudden, someone comes out with a view that is opposite of what the original statement that an officer made.
Rodney King, yep.
But we've seen this in America over and over.
Yeah.
Just like the incident you speak about in Arizona. And I know officers have a tough job, that they have tough decisions to make. But to be abusive
A 1-year-old
individual in doing your job, and this is officers down in Arizona,
Yeah.
to be abusive because you have the power. But this is what the president told them that they could do a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
That you can go out and rough people up, and there won't be any recourse for it. Don't treat them as people, treat them as animals. That's what the president has told law enforcement in this country.
Yeah.
But they had the one gentleman at the back of the car, the officer kicks his legs out and kicks him down to the ground.
Yeah.
And they're saying that that's not excessive force. As you say, they snatched the children out of the car, a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old.
Yeah.
Put them in the squad car. You got to look at the mental anguish that these children are suffering. Not just the adults, but the mental anguish that you're putting these children through. And, I would like for mainstream society to think about if these were your children
Yeah.
or your nieces and nephews that law enforcement did that to. I would beg to see how outlook would be in society, Charlton, if these were minority officers doing this to white, pedestrians,
Yeah.
white citizens.
Yeah.
If minority officers started doing this to white American citizens, what would be the outcry in America at that point? Would it be excessive force from white society saying that black officers are going overboard the way that they're treating white citizens?
Well, I heard POTUS because I have young kids too, and I always try to tell them to comply. But this gentleman complied. He complied, and it's just wrong. And I know people don't want to talk about it because they're not happening to white kids. And I did see some things last night. I was watching some news programs and they were showing what POTUS is. I think he has a $100 million treasure chest now for his re-election bid. And he kept referring to Mexicans as, like rapists and murderers, and that they were, bad people, and just some other horrific, archaic names that I've thought about over the years that people have said. You would never expect the president of the United States to say that. And I know we talk sports and everything else, but I just hope that for anyone that, if you've ever been accused of something, and most black men, you live long enough, you're going to get accused of something. Sometimes even black people will accuse you of something. It could be totally false, but they'll listen to the words of someone who lies, and not what they've experienced with you as a person. So I want to ask your thoughts, because a lot of black kids are out of school now, and I see law enforcement all over Northern California driving, and they're pulling up on cars. They want to look at black bodies, black boys and girls driving around. They drive right by a couple of white cars to get the one car with a black driver, and I see it because I've been trained to see it so many times because it's happened to me. I want to get your thoughts on something, Big C, and whether you're going to a sports game. Say you're going to your favorite sports game. You're white people driving in your car. No one's bothering you. You know they've been drinking and driving because they're coming out of stadiums and they're saying, they're sponsored by liquor companies. But they're not being pulled over. But they'll go past 10 white people driving in the car to pull over a car full of black boys. I want to get your thoughts on how they behave. We just saw what happened in Arizona. How they survived that encounter, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, the thing to do to survive that encounter is that you limit your dialogue with the officer. It's just yes or no questions. That's it.
Yeah.
It's no need in getting in any dialogue saying, why did you pull me over? What did I do? They pulled you over because they want to pull you over, whether it's valid or not. They chose to pull you over.
Yeah.
So you limit your dialogue with the officer. That's all you can do. You can't get into any verbal confrontation. Whatever they ask you to do, just do it. Do it in an expedient fashion, the way that they ask you to do it. That's what you have to do. I mean, to be combatant with law enforcement, regardless of the culture that you are,
right.
To be combatant with law enforcement is a no-win situation. We saw the situation in Arizona. They were not being combatant, but they could not win that situation regardless. Law enforcement had in their mind that they were going to abuse this couple, physically and mentally, because they had the right.
Yeah.
Because they had a uniform and they had a badge. All law enforcement officers are not bad. It's only 10%, just like in any part of society, that are bad.
Right.
You just hope not to run across that 10% that are bad, because you can have good outcomes with law enforcement. I've had both. I've had good and negative outcomes with law enforcement. When someone has the intent to commit harm to you, verbally or physically, they're going to do it because they're protected by that badge. We don't all have the same inevitable rights as citizens in this country.
No,
we just don't.
Yep.
We're at the mercy of the individual and the day that they're having, whether they had a bad day at home or they're having a bad day at work, whether they want to take it out on you.
I was just recently, very recently, talking to a law enforcement friend of mine, and because I have a young boy too, and there's other things that you can ask him about anything, and one has been a neighbor for many years, so I was asking him about anyone can be accused of anything, and so they can look into things for you. And the number one thing they say is when you get pulled over and the officer says, "Do you know why I stopped you?" The answer should be no. Because he may get you for 2 or 3 cases now. If you just say, well, did I speed? Did I roll through a red light? That's an admission. And they'll put that in the writing, because anything you say can be held against you. And I've been just schooling my young boy on that, because it's already happened with me in the car. Thank God I was there. And, we've been to that story last week. But I just want other people to know that maybe they don't have someone to speak to them like Big C Sports Bill. Because most of your programs, they're so hyped on who's going to get drafted, they couldn't care less how to keep you safe if you're going to a draft party as a young person of color. We just saw the thing on Arizona yesterday. We just saw the thing with a multi-millionaire president for the Toronto Raptors. It didn't matter what color he was. He was a black man, and they were going to get him. And for whatever reason, now the cop's saying that he has the hangover or the headache. And I just want people to know, you have a right to face your accuser. Anyone that accuses you of anything, if they can't put that person on the phone with you or in a court of law with you, then don't believe them. Because a lot of people they'll tell you a lie and they'll believe it without even having you question the person that's lying about you. Does that make any sense, Big C?
Well, Charlton, it does. But as you said, limit what you say.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line that parents have to educate their kids to.
Yeah.
It's nice that we can say it on the show, but it comes with what happens in your home first.
Yeah.
Your parents have to prepare you to be out in society.
Yeah.
To prepare you against all negativity that may occur.
Yeah.
I know when I talk to my kids about driving, I say, I'm not concerned about how you drive. Is that be worried about those that are around you.
Yeah.
Pay attention to them.
Yeah.
Don't get distracted in the car. Pay attention to your surroundings.
Yep.
Because I have taught you properly how to react and maintain yourself. But I have not taught the people that are around you the same thing.
Yeah, and being calm and yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am helps a lot. It's just important. It's like a PSA that we give, like we're going to give this one. There's a national suicide hotline for a lot of people who've gone through issues. And sometimes you're going through issues because you are. but you don't want to tell everybody, so you keep it a secret. It's at 800-273-8255. You can call 800-273-8255. A lot of kids, they don't call anymore. They want to text. You can text 838-255. That's 838-255, and get some help, because help is out there. And I just wanted to make sure that I make that available for young people, because, and I got to say this one more time, because those kids are traumatized. That 1 and that 4-year-old, maybe the 1-year-old doesn't understand it, but that 4-year-old girl, she's traumatized now. She will never ever in her life trust the people that say we come to protect and serve. She won't. Now, when we start seeing that happen to little blonde-haired, blue-eyed girls, and nobody says anything about it, then we'll start saying we've reached equality. But you know they'd be marching all through the streets if that happened. I want to look at the College World Series. University of Michigan, they shut out Florida State 2-0. It was the third shutout of the tournament by Michigan in the 9th of the season. When I saw the Wolverines come out to Westwood, Southern California, and beat UCLA 2 of 3, I said that team is a lot better than they looked. Their numbers were just as good as UCLA's, but they were not ranked number 1 in the country like the Bruins were. Big, so your thoughts?
Well, you know, the Big Ten has been the dark horse in the College Football World Series. But when you think about the run that Michigan has been on, Charlton, and they've been hitting the long ball, and that's what got them on the board in that victory was a 2-run shot to give them the lead in the game, and the runs that they needed to stymie, you know, in this win.
Yeah.
So when you think about the College World Series, Charlton, this is a do or die. It's always the best of 2 double elimination. In this tournament. And you think about the road that Michigan has been on. They've been away from home. They've only been at home, I believe, 7 days.
Maybe that's why they're winning.
The World Series has started, since the tournament has started. So they've been road warriors to go out on the road, Charlton, and beat top-flight teams, to go out and win the Western Regional, and then make it all the way to Omaha.
Yeah, and you know how we talked about the first time where there's the PGA golf tournament being won by Woodland, and then you also look at the Toronto Raptors. I believe the last 5 road games with Golden State and Toronto, it may be the first time that the road team won all of those road games. That, and maybe someone can Google if that's happened before, but that's incredible when you have those types of things. But I also want to look at something when it comes to the managers, the coaches for college baseball. And people always look at the NFL or the NBA now, especially because of the money that's being paid. But when you look at the total compensation of the coaches with teams in the College World Series, look at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's an academic university, but this program is a lot like Texas Tech, not academically, but on the field. They're starting to come up in football, and they're coming up in basketball as well as in their baseball program. They're coached by Tim Corbin. He made $1.38 million, so $1,318,000 in play for the 2017 calendar year, according to the school's federal taxes. Now, if they're arguably the best team in college baseball, could you imagine? I believe, was it Urban Meyer that made $9 million last year for Ohio State, and you know your friend Nick Saban makes right about $9 million for Alabama. Look at how cheap they're getting these coaches for baseball. Big, so your thoughts?
Well, but you also look at baseball. The attendance in a college baseball stadium is nowhere going to be near what it is in a college football arena.
Yeah.
They do play a lot more games when you look at their schedules. They're in the 60-game bracket in their schedules, Charlton, versus the 13 in college football.
Right.
But to develop the young men that they do, they spend more time with their players through the season and more games of wear and tear than what a football coach does. So you got to look at it as being a bargain for a college baseball coach, Charlton, making that kind of money.
Now, this doesn't include bonuses. I'm sure the bonuses can maybe even match that based on, what school they're with and what athletic program they're with. Also part of the SEC, you have Arkansas, Dave Van Horn. He makes $1.1 million. And the Razorbacks also have a strong program. And when I think about, there's a list, I was looking over the list to see, are there any West Coast teams? Now, how did UCLA have the number 1 team in the country, and I don't see them on this list? It doesn't mean they don't have more money in bonuses and in salaries, though. But Arkansas, Dave Van Horn, he's only making $1.1 million, Big C. Do we need to go a GoFundMe for Dave Van Horn, Arkansas coach? Big C, your thoughts?
One of the similarities, Charlton, when you look at Southern sports, whether it's basketball, baseball, or football, is that they compensate their coaches in their program.
Yeah.
And this is the reason why you get consistent participation in tournaments,
Yeah.
whether it's football, basketball, or baseball, because they're going out and they're able to attract the top flight players, Charlton, and develop them.
Yeah.
So you're rewarding these coaches for their productivity on the mound.
Well, when you think about some of these coaches, I want to look at, you could call the Urban Meyer of college baseball. Or even if you wanted to go back way in the day and say the Woody Hayes or the Bo Schembechler of baseball. You look at Florida State's Mike Martin. He's been doing it over 40 years now. He's only making $700,000. Now, maybe he's a little bit older and doesn't have any Bitcoin money, but $700,000, he's not being paid enough to have more teams in the tournament than anybody over the last 40 years. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you think about 42 years at the helm at Florida State. I mean, $750,000, Charlton, when you're over 70 years old.
Yeah.
It's not a bad payday.
Right.
You got to think about everything he has is paid for.
Yeah.
And the joy he has in life, Charlton, that it hasn't been forced into retirement.
Right.
Here's a guy that qualifies for every pension out there: Social Security, disability, old age, whatever. But here it is, Florida State University, because he's been such a moniker in that program, Charles.
Oh, yeah.
That's the money that he's making is the $750,000. You got to realize this man has no house payment, no car payment,
Nope.
no food payment.
Right.
But that's pocket change for him. That's just walking around money. Because everything else is compensated for.
You said your kids took you out on Father's Day and bought you a really nice Father's Day gift with your own credit card. I thought that's funny. So you're trying to say that the gentleman at Florida State, his kids did the same for him, Big C, with his credit card. They paid for his Father's Day dinner.
Well, that's what the city of Tallahassee does for Coach Martin down there, Charlie. I mean, he can't walk in a place in Tallahassee and play for a meal. You think about that.
Yep.
You've been around 42 years. I don't think they have a restaurant in Tallahassee that's been there for 42 years. So, anything, and he's won national championships also.
Yeah.
So when you think about having that long a tenure in any university, in any sport, 42 years, I mean, you've seen so many generations of players that have come and gone. You've had players that have gone to the major leagues and have retired, and you're still coaching at Florida State.
He's older than some of the Major League Baseball players' fathers when you think about that, Big C. Auburn, that university, outside of football, they're probably better than Alabama. They have a great basketball program. We know their football program's solid. Now they're doing it with baseball. They're coached by Butch Thompson. He makes $1 million a year. I don't know how far those schools are, Auburn from Alabama, but I hear it's less than 100 miles apart. But could you imagine, we think athleticism, we think Alabama. But when you think of all-around athletic programs, you got to think Auburn. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they've always had a top-flight baseball program down there, Charlton, dating back into the 70s. They've had all-stars and all-Americans come out of that program that have gone on to illustrious major league careers. And you think about the rise of their program across the board. They made the Elite Eight last year. As a matter of fact, the Final Four in the NCAA tournament. And here they are in Omaha with their baseball team. Their football team took a step back, but 2 years ago they were in the SEC championship game. So this has been a solid athletic program down in Alabama.
When you think about Texas, you have Texas Tech's Tim Tatlock. You make $1 million a year. And when you think about the Big 12, you really don't think about Texas Tech being dominant anything. I know they had Crabtree down there catching footballs many moons ago, and they had the quarterback at Kansas City that's setting records on Mahomes. And before that, I think the kid Baker Mayfield transferred from Texas Tech because Mahomes beat him out. I think that's the case. But that program, you don't think when you go to Texas that Texas, you think of Texas. You think of the Texas A&M, maybe even a TCU, but Texas Tech has been more successful than any programs down in Texas when you look at football, basketball, and baseball, and people would think it's Texas. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, years ago, Mike Leach put the football program on the map before his, exodus out of there, going up to Washington State. And when you look at where their basketball program has risen to, Bobby Knight came and took that basketball program out of the abyss. He was followed by his son, with the current coach now getting him to the championship game in the tournament. But as you look at the rise of baseball at Texas Tech, University of Texas has always had a solid baseball program. Many All-Americans and many professional baseball players came out of there. But Texas Tech has risen up. This shows you the talent equity in all the college sports now, and even in the state of Texas that has a plethora of great athletes down there. And Texas Tech is riding the wave right now, Charlton, of success in all levels of sports.
Yeah, and there's also Michigan's Eric Bakic at 425,000. Mississippi State, Chris Limnus, he's at 600,000. And then we'll finish up because the great Muhammad Ali was from this town, Louisville. Dan McDonald, 1.1 million. You don't think about Louisville being a strong athletic program outside of the basketball program. But over the last couple of seasons, they've had Heisman Trophy winner. They've had a team that could compete at least in their conference in the ACC trying to win championships. But when you look at baseball, Louisville is known as the home of the Louisville Slugger. It's known because of Muhammad Ali. It's a great city, but it's just kind of a city that no one thinks about because it doesn't have a national name, if that makes any sense. But give me your feeling, how do you recruit in Louisville when you have it's a basketball school, but it's their baseball program that has a chance at competing for World Series? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, have you ever heard of Kentucky Fried Chicken, Charles? Okay.
Yeah.
That's Louisville. Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Yeah.
Not only that, Denny Crum won national titles down there with the basketball program. He was a protege of John Wooden.
Yep.
He won a couple titles. Rick Pitino has won a national championship down there. The ladies basketball team is a prominent team in the top 10 every year in the ACC.
Yeah.
And the football program, you think about the expansion that they've done down there at that stadium, Charlton. On the campus, they've expanded Papa John Stadium, which is now one of the better stadiums in the mid part of this country.
Yeah.
And you look at the rise of the baseball program. We look around the country, and there's always been teams that have been synonymous with the College World Series.
Yeah.
But the thing about baseball is the great equalizer, Charlton. You just got to get on a hot streak, just like the University of Michigan going out to the West Coast.
Yeah.
Knocking off number one seeds. You looked at Creighton when they knocked off Oregon State. They were a number one seed.
Yep.
So baseball, it's about being hot that day with the bat and having a pitcher that can throw his stuff and get it over the plate.
Yeah, it is a basketball school, but they're doing it in football. They're also doing it in baseball. So really excited to bring you some of those. I felt like it's kind of an equalizer. Those only $1 million. That's like not a lot of money in the world of sports, Big C. So not everybody's bringing in $10 million and $8 million a year and $7 million a year, and these guys are competing for the top prize, the championship for baseball and basketball. But when it gets to football, there's a lot of programs that are not competing for national championships, but they're making a lot more money than even some of these coaches that we mentioned here. I do want to say we have a lot to talk about today on Big C Sports, and after we come back, after we take this Big C pause, I want to bring up something that's not necessarily sports oriented, but it affects a lot of sports people because everybody bets on something. And there's oftentimes when it happens in sports, people say, oh my God, we got to stop that. We'll take a break and come right back in just a moment and talk about it after the Big C pause. All right, we are back after the Big C pause on the Big C Sports Show. You can follow Big C Sports on the iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast, but what I really like is when you have that app in your home called Alexa, you say, Alexa, play Big C Sports podcast. You hear our sponsors, and then the show will pop up, and you can follow us there. And I want to thank all of our sponsors for all of their support. I want to just make a little U-turn because, again, we mix sports and politics and everything. And we just talked about the heinous incident that happened down in Arizona with African Americans. But I want to bring up this story that just happened in the United States. And I know POTUS wants to build a wall that's about, like the Tower of Babel. He wants it to touch the heavens. The third largest drug seizure in the United States of America, make America great again, land of the free, home of the brave. It happened today. And you would think it happened in Mexico because of all the rhetoric coming out of the White House and the enmity for people of color. But this happened in the port of Philadelphia. Last I checked, that's up north in the northeast. 17 tons of cocaine, street value, in excess of $1 billion. So much for getting this southern border wrapped up, Big C. And I'm sure POTUS will say, well, that's fake news, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, I guess if you check every backpack from every illegal trying to cross the southern border, Charlton, you might come up with 17 tons of cocaine in the next 17 years.
Yeah.
You know, you think about that, and you won't hear anything about that on Fox News from Sean Hannity and Tucker Carlson talking about the Brown Menace, because this was not a Brown Menace boat. Last I checked, there were no boats, no shipping container boats coming up from Mexico to Philadelphia.
No.
You know, and you think about 17 tons of cocaine. And the president won't speak about that tonight in his launching of his 2020 presidential campaign.
Right.
So this is how America is misled about the southern border, that Mexico is going to pay for a wall on the southern border. There's been no new fencing built on the southern border. We had an emergency crisis that he needed to declare so he could get this funding for this wall on the southern border, yet nothing has been done. And you think about this, just 2 months ago, Charlton, there was a shipment that was in New Jersey, right next to his home. Okay? And I believe that was close to $1 billion in seizures. It was one of the largest at that time. This was the third largest seizure in American history today. 17 tons of cocaine, pure cocaine. That's not being stepped on, so by the time it's stepped on, it's going to be 10 times that much, Charlton. 10 times that much when it's stepped on once it's gotten to the street. But this is where America is being misled about the menace in this country, that once you put up a border, it's going to stop all the trafficking. And I think Americans should sit back and listen. The third largest drug seizure in American history happened under the watch of the current president. And also one of the top 10 seizures in American history has happened under the watch of this current president. And none of these seizures were coming across the southern border, Charlton. And he was not aware of the seizures that were happening in the ports on the northeast coast, close to where he lived, and the Mexicans are not coming across the border.
And it's not people of color, it's not black men that own these ships that are bringing in that type of damage that's going to do damage to people who are dumb enough to put that in their bodies and their nose. But it's just part of rhetoric. And even when we think about the president for the Raptors as he's being roughed up in Oakland, or they were trying to rough him up, but there were enough people to keep the distance between them. And the kids down in Arizona that had gunpoint pointed at them like many black men have experienced. And it happened with impunity. Now they're saying they're going to pay a $10 million settlement. $10 million settlement. How about a $100 million settlement? I mean, there was a couple, an elderly Caucasian couple, that got a $2 billion settlement, I believe, because they were using some type of Roundup, some type of grass killer, and it caused a cancer. And again, a jury awarded them, I think, $2 billion. I don't know if they ever see the light of day with that money. But think about $10 million for having a gun pointed at you, but $2 billion because you had some grass killer and it happened to get into your body. It's just a crazy world that we live in. But we want people to pay attention to it, because a lot of things are going on that are outside of sports that affects people that love sports too. When you think of sports, baseball's big, Big C. Maracano Tanaka tossed a 3-hit shutout for the New York Yankees. And it's easy to say the Yankees are going to be at least somewhere near the ALCS. You can say that with their batters, with their pitching. And then last night versus the Tampa Bay Rays, he had 10 strikeouts and 1 base on balls. He's throwing the heat, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, he's throwing heat, Charlton, and not only that, now the Yankees are getting healthy. They have the best record in the American League East, and now you got pitching to go along with the hitting. They just got Encarnacion from Seattle, which gave them 3 home run title winners in the American League. They just got Giancarlo Stanton. He's going to start tonight in right field for the Yankees. Aaron Judge will be back in the lineup soon, Charlton. So when you think about Murderer's Row that the Yankees have always had, they're right now becoming a very frightening team in the AL East.
They are. And even if you think to the East, and we will go stay on the East Coast, the Atlanta Braves, they are 3-13 in the month of June. They're also leading the National League in batting average, runs scored, hits, ERAs during that span. 13-3 in the month of June, and they're healthy right now. We're not up on the All-Star break, and that's when you can start seeing teams separate. But they were so close to getting by the Dodgers last year, but they just couldn't get it done. This is a good-looking team down in Atlanta, Big C. Your thoughts?
A good-looking young team when you think about the Braves, Charlton. It harkens you back to the Braves of the early 90s under Bobby Cox. This team is coming together well. They have some young bats, Charlton. Julio Teheran on the mound has been dominant in pitching. I mean, his ERA is under 1.5 during this stretch, also as a Braves starter. But when you think about the whole team, Fulton Evans at first base,
Yeah.
being an all-star first baseman last year, Charlton, this is a team, they got some young batters in the lineup, they're fielding well, and they're leading the National League during this stretch in all the major statistical categories. It's becoming a frightening time. Now, this is in the same division that the Philadelphia Phillies are in.
Yeah.
So they've taken over first place where everybody had anointed Philadelphia when they signed Bryce Harper that the East was over with. Everyone forgot that the Atlanta Braves won the East last year, Charlton.
Yeah, and I think when you look at how young they are, and we talked about Scherzer and Verlander, they used to be in Detroit. Detroit's having a hard time winning anything. And, we pay a lot of money for players that got some season under them. But when you look at Atlanta, they're built like, they remind me of how Houston was built that won the World Series just 2 years ago. They were built through the draft. It wasn't through the trade like a lot of other teams are doing. Well, Houston they added some of the trade because they got Verlander. But do you look at Atlanta, maybe in the next, we can't predict anything, but just because of their youth and how they lead the league in so many things, do you see them being at least in the NLCS in the next 2 or 3 seasons, Big C? It has to be close to it. Your thoughts?
Well, you look at Jose Albies, Raul Acuna Jr., Charlton. They just brought up another young player from the minor leagues who has set a record as far as home runs in his first 2 weeks in the major leagues. This is a team right now, Charlton, that's built to stay.
Yeah.
They're young. They're exciting. And that's what you have in baseball. They haven't gone out and chased the high-priced free agents. I think they just signed Dallas Keuchel, who was a big reliever with Boston during their World Series run.
Yeah.
And so he's going to come in and help shore up that bullpen in the next couple of weeks when they bring him up from AAA ball.
Yeah.
So this is a team, you always talk about having hitting.
Yeah.
But pitching is what gets you over. You talked about Verlander and talked about Scherzer when teams acquired them late in the season to help them in pennant runs, Charlton. That's what Atlanta has done by just signing Keuchel. He's going to really help them. And like I said, they were a game away from taking the Dodgers last year in the playoffs, Charlton. So this is the team. Dodgers are hot again in the West Coast. But when you look at what Atlanta is doing with the young bats that they have, you got to be real excited about that team.
You got to be excited about them. Now, I know it's kind of when we hear the chant. Now, I know some Native Americans that tell me that's homage to their tribes. Well, because the chant, and I don't want to sound ignorant, but the I mean, that sound when it comes out of that stadium, and I think it may be, I don't want to be insensitive to anybody, but some of my Native American friends say that's homage to the tribes. I think sometimes mainstream says we got to stop that and change the name. So it's all fair in love and war, and people have their opinions.
You got to look, Charlton, where the Braves were formed at. They were formed in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
There's a lot of native people in that region,
right.
Charlton. When you go to Milwaukee and deal up there are 7 casinos, native-owned casinos in the Milwaukee region.
Yeah.
So the native influence in that area was real huge, and that's how they got their name. I know there's been a lot of outcry about the Cleveland Indians changing their name, and they're going to change that at the end of this season as far as their logo,
right,
as far as representative of the team. But I think years ago, I mean, everybody's sensitive to something.
Right.
And when you're looking at sports, I mean, we look at the Kansas City Chiefs, we look at the Atlanta Braves, look at the Florida State Seminoles, Charlton.
Yeah.
There are many teams with native names as far as their mascots, Charlton.
Yeah.
I don't know if they were ever denigrating. I know the Washington Redskins, there was been a lot of outcry about that team's moniker. I think that this country needs to concentrate more on abolishing racism versus the team's mascot. If as much emphasis in America was put on racism as it is a team mascot, we would have a lot more civil society.
I agree. You cannot, if you're a California high school, there's over about 1,500 high schools in California, probably more, but you cannot, as of last year, you cannot have the name Redskin. There are a lot of schools that had Redskin for years, and now they have to call themselves the Tribe or they just changed the name. There's over 700.
Think about the Stanford Cardinals decades ago, Charles.
Yeah.
That they were the Stanford Indians.
Indians, yeah.
When I was growing up, when it was just the Pac-8.
Yeah.
They were the Stanford Indians. When Jim Plunkett won his Heisman Trophy,
they
were the Stanford Indians. And I believe even when John Elway was there, they were still the Stanford Indians.
Yeah.
They came out when political correctness came about and became the Stanford Cardinals.
Yeah.
And from a Cardinal to making your mascot a redwood tree, that's a long stretch. At least you could have put the bird up there or something.
Well, you'll see them put the bird up when Cal comes to town. But there's over 700 Native American tribes, and I happen to have affiliation with a company that insures Native Americans because a lot of them, they have a lot of free school and health care, etc. We know what's happened to the land, etc. But there's a lot of still debate over whether those names are offensive or not. I do want to run down tonight's Major League Baseball schedule because now baseball doesn't have to compete with basketball. It doesn't have to compete with hockey for a change. And you're starting to see more people going out to the parks. And because school's out, maybe people take their families out to a game. Philadelphia at Washington, Tampa Bay is at New York, Detroit's at Pittsburgh. You have the LA Angels at Toronto. And I think Mike Trout, he's for 8 years in a row, he's had at least 20 home runs. So that good boy is really swinging the bat. I don't think he's worth $430 million, Big C, but he is hitting the ball as well as anybody over the past, I guess, 3 or 4 months. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Mike Trout is one of the more dominant players in baseball. When you think about his time in the American League with the California Angels, he has just been always at the top of the statistical leaderboard. Yeah. You know, he just needs more help. We've seen what Shohei Ohtani has done coming back from injury as a DH hitting for the cycle. For the first time a Japanese player has done that in their history.
Yep.
Albert Pujols is basically on his last leg, but he is still delivering from time to time. They have struggled on the mound with pitching. That's where the Angels have consistently fallen short.
Yeah.
And until they can get some pitching to help out Mike Trout, Charlton, they're not going to be totally relevant in the AL West.
And then also, when you look at the other teams that are playing, Houston, which is very dominant, at Cincinnati, New York Mets at Atlanta. Talked about Atlanta and their youth, and they're dominating. The Chicago White Sox at the Chicago Cubs. Can't get a seat for that one at Wrigley Field. Why are the Cubs Chicago's darling, and then the White Sox, which has a newer stadium? Everybody says they need a new stadium. You can almost walk in there and pick your seat, Big C, but you can't do that at Wrigley, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you know, it's been a long-running history with the Cubs in Chicago. They've been synonymous with the city. They're like the Bears.
Yeah.
Even when the Bears were losing, they were the lovable Bears just like they were the lovable Cubs.
Yeah.
You think about the Chicago Bulls when they were in the Chicago Stadium, Charlton, they always had a packed house, just like the Blackhawks did.
Yeah.
But when you think about the Sox, they were the new team that came along in that city.
Yeah.
The Cubs had been there for well over 100 years, and so they were synonymous with the Chicago backdrop.
Yeah. It's a great city no matter what team you root for. You have Cleveland at Texas, Boston at Minnesota, the Twin Cities. You have Miami. They're at St. Louis, a great baseball town. I'm still sure there might be as short as a Budweiser, Big C, because the Blues fans are drinking all up. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, you got to find, it might become a dry county when you think about it pretty soon. Because, I mean, they were putting it down. When you think about Brett Hall, Charlton,
yep.
I mean, Brett couldn't even speak at the parade, you know. He was, I don't even know if he could say slurring his words.
That's funny. He was speaking in new tongues, Big C, speaking in tongues with his in the church. Colorado at Arizona, Baltimore at Oakland, Milwaukee at San Diego. You have the Giants and the Dodgers. Both of those teams came out from the East Coast. And then Kansas City at Seattle, two great cities in the United States of America. It's all fair and love and war, and we love bringing it to you. I want to just get your thoughts on something that's happening, because we know that relationships are tough, especially when you don't trust somebody. If someone accuses you of something in a relationship that you know you didn't do, and that person may know you didn't do it, but they may listen to someone who's ignorant, and they'll say, well, you must have done it. Why? Because someone said it. Well, I would say, as my parents used to say, you know, who did this? Who broke the lamp? And nobody said anything. So everybody got punished. Well, I had brothers and sisters. I didn't want to take the fall because my brother broke the lamp. So sometimes, you know, the parents will find out who broke the lamp, Big C. But you got a chance to face your accuser, and sometimes that doesn't happen in life. So the NBA is having this relationship issues, and you and I talked about it earlier. It's down in Texas, Chris Paul and James Harden. Now, maybe there was a commercial with, I believe, some insurance company where someone set someone's house on fire, and I thought it was just a joke. But I was starting to think maybe Harden did set an aluminum can in Chris Paul's microwave and set the house on fire, because he says this relationship is unsalvageable and demanded a trade and told management it's him or me. That's what Harden said. But give me your thoughts. Who's going to pick up $35 million, Big C, if one wants to get out? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you know, I've constantly heard about the disenchantment through the media in all sports.
Yeah.
About athletes not wanting to be someplace.
Yeah.
You know, we constantly hear this. And athletes don't dictate what management does all the time. I mean, trades can always be done because teams will eat half of a salary to send a player somewhere. But the problem I have with the so-called disenchantment in Houston is that for the past 2 years, there's only been one team in the West that was better than the Rockets.
Yeah.
That team next year, potentially Charlton, will not be better than the Rockets. So why would you give up on having the best team right now in the Western Division?
Yep.
But when you look at a roster and where you've been in the last 2 years, that only one team was better than you.
Yeah.
You know, you put differences aside. I mean, what did you hear after January with the Golden State Warriors? All that you heard was that team was over with.
Negative, yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
You heard Kevin Durant. You heard the media saying Kevin Durant didn't want to be there any longer. He couldn't wait till the season was over, and he was out of there.
Never heard him
There
say
was nothing they could do to keep him around. I heard that for months, Charles.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing the same disenchantment in Houston. The media is coming out. No, he doesn't want to be there.
Right.
I mean, until that player holds a damn press conference saying, I'm not playing for this organization anymore, that's as simple as it is. It's not complicated. It's just like when you said, you asked your children who broke the lamp. Yeah. That ain't difficult. It's a simple answer.
Right.
Who broke the damn lamp?
Well, Big
that's the same thing.
It's difficult.
When that player said, I have to hold a press conference because this is my stance.
Yeah.
We never heard Kevin Durant at any point during the season saying, I got to be out of here. I'm holding a press conference. This is it. I'm never playing for the Golden State Warriors again.
Yeah.
I heard Kevin Durant say, you know who the hell I am. I'm Kevin Durant.
You know
and I'm here playing with my teammates.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing.
Well,
I haven't heard James Harden hold a press conference.
No.
I haven't heard Chris Paul hold a press conference. Although I've heard all this banter for the past week about, no, they can't coexist anymore. I don't know if the last time that I heard that $35 million in your pocket can't let you coexist with somebody. That's what I have a hard time understanding in the world of professional sports. If they're telling me that guys are unhappy making $35 million, that they can't hang out with somebody for 2 hours a night at work. This is the problem that I have. So as we get ballyhooed by the mainstream media all the time of constantly telling you how black athletes are dysfunctional. I hear this all the time. It's only the black athletes are dysfunctional. They can't coexist. Now, you think about that in turn. Today, Al Horford of the Boston Celtics turned down $30 million. Because he said, look, I want control of my life late in my career. That's what he did. He turned down $30 million from the Boston Celtics. Now, this is supposed to be the flagship organization in the East. But what Al Horford has said is that Danny Ainge and the Boston Celtics can't get it done. Brad Stevens has lost control as a coach. I don't want to be part of a dysfunctional situation. Now, Al Horford just straight up said it. I'm going to let you keep your $30 million.
$30 million.
Because I value the rest of my career. I haven't seen anybody in Houston saying, I'm giving up the money. I'm not going to exercise an option. Also, Harrison Barnes told the Sacramento Kings today. Keep your $25 million. I don't want it. I'm going elsewhere. Harrison Barnes is going to end up with the Lakers. That's where he's going. He's going to go down and team up with Anthony Davis, LeBron James, and whoever else they have in the fold, Kyle Kuzma. He'll go down and take $20 million from the Lakers. Why? Because if he wins, Charlton, with the Lakers, what can he do marketing and endorsement-wise in Los Angeles that he can't do in Sacramento? Just being in Los Angeles, you're going to make an extra $5 to $10 million outside the arena in endorsements, Charlton. You're not going to make $50 in Sacramento.
Well, I think what hurt the Kings also is a smaller market, number 20 market, but the way Vlade Divac treated DeMarcus Cousins, who is really the one prodigal all-star and great in the community. And he treated him like a step friend. And he traded him during an all-star, and it was just bad the way it went down. Players talk because it's a small fraternity. So when people can get out from that type of leadership, they want to bring in all the European players because of their friends and give them a job in their organization. But that's not going to help you win the championship. I want to pay homage to the great Kawhi Leonard of the Toronto Raptors, because people say he doesn't talk, but this guy has a personality. And he didn't drop the mic as he said, thank you and enjoy the championship. He said, whatever his laugh is, it's like a viral now. My son does it all the time. Whatever it is, I love his laugh, Kawhi Leonard. But the Raptors have 4 key free agents, Big C. Kawhi Leonard, you have Serge Ibaka, Kyle Lowry, and Marc Gasol, of anyone that would stay there, it most likely would be Lowry, even though he's from Philadelphia area. But, money talks. And now your jury's going to be out of there. Toronto might, a lot of guys might want to cross the border coming back south. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, there's no guarantee that Toronto is going to be the team that they were that won the championship. Everyone keeps talking about Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard did a masterful job, but you think about a year ago, was Kawhi Leonard considered one of the top players in the NBA?
Yeah.
Even during the season, was he considered a top player in the NBA? It happened during the run in the playoffs that he was considered one of the elite players in the NBA. He's been a consistent player throughout his career. But if he stays and those others go, what do you have, Charles? You got to look at the chemistry that they had in Toronto. All of those players that you spoke about had outstanding finals. When you look at it, they all at some point led the team in scoring during the finals, Charles. They had their runs. Even Lowry, he may have fouled out of a couple games, but he was an integral part in Toronto winning the championship. Serge Ibaka played above what anybody expected. They got out of Marc Gasol what they expected in the trade, and people don't realize that he was traded for mid-season. That the jury brought him in to help stabilize the middle of that team, Charles, because they were weak in the post. So you take those four players out of the equation, as people talk about what is Golden State going to be next year without Durant and without Thompson. What would Toronto be without those four starters, Charlton, not returning?
Well, for people that are saying, Kawhi, please stay. Please stay. Jeffrey Osborne sang a song back in the days called Stay, Stay, Never Go Away, through laughter and through tears. But I think DeMar DeRozan was their Kawhi Leonard last year. I think they sent him packing down South Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, he left. I mean, there was really no reason for him to leave, but your jury had to make the trade to bring in Kawhi Leonard. He knew making the trade for Kawhi Leonard that Kawhi Leonard was a rental player. People saying, well, he could own the whole country. He could only live in one house. So that's the bottom line. He could only live in one house. And so this is what the media doesn't understand. They said, well, he's a god in Toronto. I don't care. He was a god in San Antonio.
He sure was.
But he wasn't happy. He had a finals MVP in San Antonio. He wasn't happy. The thing about millionaires is that millionaires want to be happy wherever they are. That's the bottom line, Jonathan. And when you can make the same amount of money in this city as you can in that city, you want to be in a city that makes you happy. People say, well, if he stays in Toronto, they could win another championship. That's not guaranteed. You got Philadelphia in the East. You have Milwaukee in the East. You have Boston in the East. The road in the East is a lot tougher now than what it was in the West. You think about that. You got those three teams, and they're young. They're not old, Charlton. They're young. On the Western side, you had older teams. But if he wants to go home and be comfortable, I'm all in with Kawhi Leonard. You're comfortable where you're comfortable at. And if he wants to be with the Los Angeles Lakers, sleeping in his $15 million California home, I think he can make it on a $35 million salary in Los Angeles just like he could in Toronto. Though.
And the air is fresh in LA too. We look at the Big C 2019 NBA mock draft. Say draft point 1.0. You look at New Orleans, they have Zion Williamson, the forward. And then you have out of Memphis, there's Ja Morant, the guard out of Murray State. I look at New York, R.J. Barrett, the forward out of Duke. And I'll do two more. Number 4, maybe New Orleans. We'll look at Darius Garland, the guard out of Vanderbilt. And then Cleveland, there's a guy named Kobe White. He's a guard out of North Carolina. I think he's very solid. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, when you look at it, and everybody will speculate on what their draft wants to be. Everybody in the media is saying this is the fit for that team. I think when we look at the players, after we get past the first 3, when we look at Zion Williams, Ja Morant, and Barrett, it's a crapshoot. It's about what teams want, what fits their personality at that point. What is their immediate need? I mean, you look at New Orleans, they got 2 picks in the first 4. 2 picks in the first 4. What are they going to do with that? I mean, are you just going to take a team and build a young team and hope that they develop over the next 3 to 4 or 5 years? Because it would take that long for a young team to be competitive. Or do they trade that number 4 pick, Charlton, and get a veteran like a Bradley Beal out of Washington? Or even a Millsap out of Utah? These are the things you got to look at. How do we want to structure our team? Do we need a leader? I mean, Jimmy Butler's out there on the free agent market. Do you bring him in?
Right.
Those young players that you have now in New Orleans, which is really the Los Angeles Lakers part two.
Yeah.
2 years ago, this was the Los Angeles Lakers team, Charles.
Yeah.
When you think about the 3 players that were just traded to go along with Julius Randle, that's 4 players that were on the Lakers team 2 years ago.
Yeah. And
Now, do they go to New Orleans and find more success as a group because they don't have the pressure of the city of Los Angeles? So you're going to have 5 new starters in New Orleans. So
Yeah.
I would stay with those 4 young players, Zion Williams being one of them, and bring in a veteran to hone that group together, Charlton. You need a veteran leadership, and mainly at point guard. Mike Conley out of Memphis. They can make a trade with Memphis and get Mike Conley. I think he would be excellent in a leadership role with those young players.
There's a lot of other young players, too, where there's DeAndre Hunter, a forward out of Virginia. You look at this Jarrett Culver, a guard out of Texas Tech. There's a Jason Hayes, a center out of Texas. There's a guy, Sekou Doumbouya, out of France, and he's looking solid. Atlanta, they may take a guy by the name of Cameron Reddish, a guard out of Duke. But think about the last 2 NBA champions. They were not swimming around at that. What do they use? What is it? A ping pong ball? A ping pong ball is used to determine who's going to get the number 1 pick. The last I checked, Golden State, they won the last 2 of the last 3 finals based on a veteran player in Kevin Durant, not some guy in college. And if I'm not mistaken, Toronto Raptors just won the championship based on a veteran player in Kawhi Leonard. They were not hanging around the college campuses. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you think about the Toronto Raptors, and you think about 3 of their starters this year in that championship series, Charlton, came via trade.
Yeah.
Serge Ibaka, Kawhi Leonard, Marc Gasol. They were all via trade, Charlton. They weren't developed by the Toronto Raptors. They were developed by other teams.
No.
But they were brought in for their veteran contribution. You talked about the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah.
When you look at key contributions, Andre Iguodala was developed by the 76ers. Kevin Durant was developed by the OKC Thunder.
Yeah.
They brought in players, Charlton, that could contribute immediately. And this is what everyone in the media needs to understand. You can get all goo-goo and gaga over the draft. I don't care whether it's baseball, basketball, football, or hockey. The last time I checked, Charlton, the teams that have won championships in the last decade have all won them with veteran leadership. Not with rookies. The last number 1 overall draft pick, Charlton, that led a team to a championship was LeBron James. 15 years ago. That's the last overall number 1 draft pick that has won a championship. It took him 8 years into his career to accomplish that, Charlton. 8 years of development for King James to win an NBA title. He didn't win it instantly. Matter of fact, he didn't make it to the playoffs until his 3rd year in the league. That's how dominant the veteran NBA players are. It took King James 3 years into his NBA career to make it to the playoffs. You think about Michael Jordan, everybody calls him the greatest of all time.
Right.
His first 3 NBA appearances, Charlton, he was swept in 2 of them and knocked out in the 2nd round in the 3rd one.
By some veteran players.
So by veteran players who had that veteran moxie about understanding what it took to win a series. Michael Jordan wasn't that instant success in the NBA. Shaquille O'Neal was not that either. Neither was Kobe Bryant.
Nope.
It took teaming up with players, veteran players. People talk about Magic winning a championship as a rookie. Look at the veteran role that were played on the team that the Lakers had at that time. Magic just happened to fit in. But they had all-star guards, they had an all-star center, they had all-star forwards. Magic just happened to fall into place. So as you think about this draft that's coming up, and Zion Williams, no one knows what type of NBA player he was going to be.
No, they don't
We know that he was dominant amongst the boys in college. But R.J. Barrett, think about this. R.J. Barrett was Duke's number 1 recruit. Zion just happened to explode as a freshman. But Barrett was the number 1 recruit in the country. And his numbers were equal to Zion's at Duke. He just was not as flashy of a player. He was more steady of a player. So will that steady game translate into the NBA over that flashy game, Charlton? And think about this. The kid from Duke that said Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving only played 7 games at Duke, 7 or 11 games. That's all he played at Duke. And so it doesn't say just because you were a star in college that you're going to be a star in the NBA.
That's
you can
true.
be a guy who didn't play in college
Yeah.
and become a star in the NBA.
Yep. It's all about timing, and if you got in the NBA, you got guys what they call a grown man strength, Big C. I think it's when you have grown man strength. What does that mean, grown man strength, Big C? Your thoughts?
That you're not going to be punked easy, okay?
Okay.
That grown man strength is not just physical, but it's mental, Charles.
Guys that grab you.
You're out there fighting for your livelihood.
Yeah.
And just because these young kids come in with all this ballyhoo hoopla,
Yeah.
you're not going to kowtow to them. You're not going to say, hey, it's your game. I'm just sitting here to watch you.
Yeah.
They got to check. You have to earn it.
Yeah.
You know, that old analogy. You can't bring Kool-Aid to a gin party, okay?
Well,
it don't work.
Well, maybe that's why they won't let me in, Big C. You can follow Big C Sports on iHeartRadio podcast 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We go live at 6 o'clock p.m., Monday through Friday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can find us on Speaker. You can follow Big C Sports on YouTube. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity Comcast. And what I really love is the app. If you have the app called Alexa, when you go home, say, Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast, and you can hear our sponsors, and then the show will come up. And so we thank our sponsors for their support. Big C, the UFC owner, Dana White, he's looking to diversify his portfolio. The UFC is headquartered out of Las Vegas. They can start diversifying the portfolio by getting more fights on, because we saw what happened with the heavyweight division. It's a lot of made-up hype, but the fights are lasting 1 and 2 rounds. Doesn't make any sense. UFC, if somebody gets choked out or tapped out, is real. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I think when Dana's looking at diversifying his portfolio, and the UFC is located in Las Vegas, and we have a dysfunctional NFL franchise that's getting ready to move to Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Dana White has his mindset on trying to become part of the NFL.
Yeah.
I know he's thinking about getting a group together and heading a group in pursuing an NFL franchise.
Yeah.
One of the things about the NFL is that they like solo ownership. They like to deal with an individual versus a group of people, and that's why it's been hard for groups to put together. You know, people have put together groups and tried to get into that NFL fraternity because they want one head for one team sitting at the table, not 4 or 5. But Dana White is one of those people that's interested in pursuing the NFL. I mean, he's moved into that $1 billion category a few years ago when he put the UFC up and got $4 billion investment in that. So he has the money to join that fraternity. It's just a matter of whether he wants to put up all his money to do that, Charles.
Well, I want to be a billionaire, too. I'm going to leave you with 2 football thoughts, because I know you like football like you good old boys in the South like. Is it deep fried pig feet and Kool-Aid? I think it's what you guys think, Big C. Dak Prescott, Dallas Cowboys quarterback, projected to be the 2019 NFL season to be the 43rd. That's 43rd highest paid quarterback in the NFL, though he has 32 victories in his first 3 seasons, and a career high, when you think about it, last year 3,885 passing yards last season. Juxtapose him, Kirk Cousins. He started the NFL career for himself as a 4th-round pick. He is 23 wins, 23 losses, and 2 ties over the last 3 seasons as an NFL starter with an $84 million guaranteed contract. Big C, how does that make sense?
Charlton, there's no social equity in society, and there's no social equity in sports. How do you justify paying your cousin in Minnesota
He's not my cousin.
$84 million over 3 years, guaranteed?
Yeah.
And he is a 500 quarterback. Think about that. When they talk about the success of the white quarterback in the NFL, Kirk Cousins is a 500 quarterback over the last 2 years, over the last 3 years in the NFL.
Yeah.
A 500 quarterback. That guarantees you $34 million. Now, we've seen Dak Prescott during that same time frame, Charlton, win 9 more games than Kirk Cousins and have 2 playoff appearances.
Yeah.
2.
Playoffs? You say playoffs?
2 playoff appearances. Kirk Cousins has never made the playoffs nor won a playoff game. Dak Prescott has done that, Charlton.
Yeah. Well,
and the backlash in the media is how do you justify paying Dak Prescott? That he was a 4th-round draft pick. He wasn't a number 1 draft pick. Kirk Cousins was a 4th-round draft pick.
Yeah.
Jimmy Garoppolo was a 2nd-round draft pick.
Yep.
He got $137 million.
It's all money.
Cousins, and people say, okay, Carson Wentz. Well, he has a Super Bowl ring.
He didn't
Everybody
play the
else
game.
on the Philadelphia Eagles got a Super Bowl ring too that didn't play.
They didn't
Charlton.
play.
It was on the practice roster.
Yeah.
So Carson Wentz has had an injury-plagued career. He has 107 million guaranteed,
Yeah.
and no division titles under his belt as the quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Well, yep.
Dak Prescott, to me, is the guy that fits what Dallas does system-wise.
Yeah.
And Jerry Jones would be the biggest fool, even though he's one of the biggest, he would be the biggest fool in the NFL if he doesn't find $30 million a year to give Dak Prescott.
Yeah, he can find.
A guy who has been nothing but successful.
Yeah.
And you've gotten a discount with Zach over the first 3 years of his career, Joe.
Yeah.
You haven't paid the guy $4 million in 3 years.
Yep.
And so why would you have a resistance to paying him $30 million a year for what he has brought to the Dallas Cowboys organization?
Maybe he listens to the media that says black men can't be good quarterbacks. I think that's crazy. Every Monday through Friday, you can follow Big C Sports. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young man, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, I'm looking forward to seeing some exciting baseball. When we look at the record home run pace that Major League Baseball is on this year, I know we've gotten rid of football, we've gotten rid of basketball, we've gotten rid of hockey.
Yeah.
Now it's time for America's pastime, Charlton. The College World Series has been rained out tonight in Omaha, but Major League is still on the mound.
Is still on the mound. And speaking of on the mound, you can be on the mound too every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know anyone going through that garbage, pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.